bits and pieces as well. So part of what I did when I set up the client services team here was making sure we had a massive income in addition to just commission. Okay, so it's a massive important part about how you grow your income and grow your business. Okay, so in an ideal world, you want, turn that off so it doesn't keep going off. In an ideal world, you want about 50% of your annual income coming from ongoing fees. Okay, it's the simplest way to do it, and then you build on top of that and build commissions, etc. on top of that. If you're good, you can get 70% of your income coming from existing clients and ongoing income. And there's multiple ways you can do that, which we'll go through different options. Some you may have heard of, some you may not have. Trails, dVam, various fees. Okay, so in simple terms, it's a way to create extra income for what we already get paid. Okay, a lot of people don't capitalise on this by making best use of the funds that we have. Okay, so they're actually the funds are paying or charging a fee, but we're not getting a share of that. Okay, because they're not in the right type of funds. Okay, so when you build an investment portfolio, someone will go to a client, you want to build this client a portfolio, okay, and I'm going to choose XYZ funds. But they've just gone with random funds. Every fund is charging a fee underlying to the client. Okay, that's usually going back to the fund house. When we look at ongoing fees and we look at funds that do that, particularly our own funds, okay, that's being paid back to us and ultimately paid to you. Okay, so let's say a fund's paying 1% or being charged 1%. Typically half will be kept by the provider, okay, and then the other half will be shared with us. Okay, and that goes down to you. So simple terms, my income is probably about 70% now of ongoing fees, of various different types of fees, through Trails, which is through regulars, through our own funds, and through various fees that we can add on to products for servicing the client. So I'll go through each part of that as well. So Trails is exactly that. A client has chosen a fund, okay, and part of that fund, those fees are being charged, okay, and they're being paid back to us, usually on a quarterly basis. Okay, so put that in perspective, some of my guys get paid round about 10,000 quid a quarter just on trail payments, okay, just by clients being in the right funds. Okay, so they will be funds that we pre-approved, okay, that are industry leading funds, different spectrum of funds that they can use to put into a portfolio. Okay, now ultimately the client isn't charged any extra because it's coming out of the fund, it's coming out of the performance of the fund. So the net performance of the fund includes the fee, right, and the same for any fund. Whatever it is, it's not a visible payment they see, okay, it's just a charge that's incorporated into the fund and the ongoing cost of the fund that's then paid back. Okay, in my opinion, stupidity if you don't do it, because it's being charged to the client anyway, okay, just if in the wrong funds, we're not getting a share of it, which doesn't make any sense. All right, so it's good if you just start as well, because it applies to regulars, okay, which is typically what you start with. It does apply to lump sums as well. So Trails typically on regulars, okay, you'll see them when you look at a portfolio, you'll see Canaccord a lot. You would have seen GAM, but that's no longer relevant, okay, and then you'll now start seeing more, the dVam ones appearing in there as we do it, okay, but a lot of the portfolios, particularly Friends Provident, you'll probably see Canaccord across the whole lot, okay. Currently, we're working, and by the end of the quarter, it should be ready that we can then move from Canaccord to dVam. Canaccord's quite expensive, okay, if we move to dVam, then one, we own the asset, okay, but secondly, the cost of the fund is cheaper for the client and we still get paid the same fee. All right, so that's just a simple portfolio that we use. And normally you'll have a low, medium and high risk portfolio that you can use for the client. Okay, so they've got the full spectrum available of the products within the portfolio for them to use. But as I said, I think it's stupidity if you don't do it because you're just losing money that you could have been paid. Okay, very, very simple terms. dVam obviously is us, hence the name. Okay, so it's a suite of funds that we created, probably 5-6 years ago. Okay, that's available, mainly lump sum, but more so now moving to regulars. Okay, again, same scenario. Okay, it's a fund that we own, all right, and then the fee for that running that fund gets passed back to us. Okay, I'll give you an example on that. a fund called Guinness Global Equity Income, okay, not Guinness the beer, okay, just happens to be the same name, not Guinness Book of Records or anything like that either. Okay, just it has to be a similar name. That fund charges an AMC, annual management charge, of, call it 1% in the open market. Okay, so if you buy that fund, it's a regularly available fund. Okay, dividend paying as well, pays about a 3% dividend as well. Okay, if you buy that in the open market, it will cost you 1%. Okay, so 1% performance will be deducted to run the fund. If you buy the dVam version, which is the same fund, the same managers, the same assets, everything, run by Guinness, just branded dVam, so it's branded dVam Global Equity Income, not Guinness, okay, will cost the client about 0.8. So there's immediate saving by the client just going into our version of the fund. Okay, very simply buying power. Okay, so we approach Guinness, and that's one of them. There's multiple funds, and I'll go through them in a second. Multiple funds that you can buy, and we've gone buying power on it. We've got full control of it. We run the fund, okay, through Pacific, who are the fund manager. Okay, but the client gets a cheaper version of it, and we get paid. All right, so again, it doesn't make any sense not to use it. All right, because one, it builds up dVam as a brand and an asset manager. Okay, we're about 1.5 billion now in that asset manager now. But you get a cheaper version. Now what happens is the more clients go into it, the more we can squeeze them and bring that down. So usually once a year, that fee goes down. Okay, so we're pushing to reduce this. Okay, but it doesn't affect what we get paid. Okay, so from that fund, we would typically earn 0.5%. Okay, from it. So again, the more assets you have in it, the important part of how it grows. Okay, so you'll find in most lump sum portfolios, that's probably 50% of the portfolio. One, it's a very good fund. It's a value fund. Okay, so it's done very well through all market conditions. Returns around about 8 to 10% for the client, plus a 3% dividend. Okay, it's quite stable. It was one of the only funds that made money through the pandemic. Okay, so very, very stable fund. It's got all the kind of things that people want in there. I want exposure to tech, I want exposure to this, I want exposure to the right areas. Okay, we can drill down on it, but it gives you all the bits and pieces that people want. Okay, so when you look at a fund, whether it's categorized in the regulars or trails, or you look at something like dVam, it's not just one part, there's about 200 pieces of it. Okay, so in theory, it's a mini portfolio within the portfolio. All right, but clients get a great return on that. So there's about 6 or 8 different types of mini portfolios under the dVam brand that are available now, that clients within it aren't penalised. They're actually in a better position by being in that fund. Okay, they get to take advantage of what's there for them. All right, we get a benefit of building up an asset manager, become more valuable. Okay, and secondly, you get paid for that. Okay, in addition to that, we have service fees that we add on to a portfolio. Okay, you've got service manager, oh, wrong way around.
When you say we, you mean?
The advisor. Yeah. So, 2 types of funds, service management fee and discretionary fund management. Okay, typically we are pushing more towards this for a number of reasons. Service management fee is a local fee, okay, charged locally. If the client moves, we lose the client. Okay, particularly to a regulated area. So if they're here and they move to UK, okay, that cannot longer be charged. And we can't actually legally keep the client. If they're in discretionary fund management, it has an asset manager attached to it who is pushing the buttons and making the decision on the portfolio. We're just a servicing agent. Okay, so it's more sensible where possible, it's not possible on everything, where possible to set them up on DFM from day one. Because if the client moves, you do not lose the client no matter where they go. Okay, so what does that look like and how does that all fit together?
Could you just do a little bit more DFM and how does that look?
Yeah, so DFM, I'll do that in part of the portfolio. So let's say you've got a portfolio, okay, a box to hold something in, okay, where all your assets go into. Okay, within that, you would be having dVam funds. okay, which give you the ability to hold the right funds within that. What gets wrapped around it is the DFM. Okay, discretionary fund management. Okay, so what that basically means is the team of Mauritius are looking at the portfolio and they are the ones making the decision on the portfolio, and technically they're the ones giving the advice, okay, because you have to be a registered DFM to provide advice, certainly in some remote areas. Okay, we as the advisor is the one though that's directly interacting with the client. So we're speaking to the client, okay, we're giving them updates on the portfolio, we're servicing the portfolio. We then work with the DFM team to go, the client wants a bit more risk, whatever, what would you recommend? Okay, you send an email to them, they do a portfolio calculation, they send it back to you and going, this is how we would rebalance the portfolio, okay? Because it's discretionary fund management, we actually don't need the client's permission to make the changes. Okay, normally we would run through it with the client and just go, these are the changes recommended. Okay, they recommend that because it's a rebalance of the weighting based on risk, based on age, etc. So they will look at a number of things. They look at age of the client, risk profile of the client, okay, so the risk profile linked to it, and then the funds fall within a parameter of that of what the client can use. Okay, and then there's a weighting to it about how much into one and how much into another, and then that's typically rebalanced once a year, just to make sure the client's in line with that.
Speaking in terms of the risk profile, obviously you have to do a risk tolerance questionnaire to get that. I've seen ours, but I've seen some of the providers that have their risk tolerance questionnaires as well, and they seem to be a little bit more in tune with what I'm used to utilizing. Will I be able to utilize those, or do we have to use?
No, we use our own.
So the 1 to 2, 3 to 4.
Correct. So that is in line with the DFM stuff. Okay, it's all been approved. It's all syncs in line with that, and then the funds are also linked to that as well.
Okay.
So you have a recognised fund sheet, which is linked to very similar to the risk profile.
I think you might have answered my next question there, but if someone's in DFM and they want to buy a set class of shares or an ETF, and they make that recommendation to us.
So we can approach the DFM team to check it, and it would depend on one, the liquidity of the fund, the risk of the fund, etc., etc. Okay, so it's not just our funds in there. You can have other things in there. So you could have, for example, some ETFs in there as well. Okay, that should go up in theory once we move to dVam as well, right? Because there's very limited portfolios at the moment on the regulars. All right, so to give you some option on that. So I'll go through, I'll just show you on the systems how you can access all of that. So there's various websites that give you all of the information. Okay, first you've got the dVam website. So it's just dvam-am.com. Okay, so that gives you access to all the dVam funds. Okay, so you can go on here and see the different strategies. There's more coming. Okay, so the one we were just looking at, the Global Equity Income, is the Guinness version. Okay, it gives you all the details about the fund, why invest, Guinness, etc. So it gives you all the information about the fund manager because they're still running it. Okay, so it's not that they've been removed at all. If you went and looked at the Guinness website, it's the same information.
That's a good selling point.
It's a massive selling point because it's cheaper. Why wouldn't you have it? Same thing, it's just cheaper. Okay, so the performance on there, and because it's cheaper, the performance is slightly better as well because there's less coming out in fees. All right, so we actually, our version of the fund performs better than their own fund. Okay, so we've moved huge amounts into it. This fund's got probably the largest amount of things in it. You've got all the information on here in regards to all the literature you'll need. Okay, there's so much information. There's all the facts and figures, etc. If you go down here to kid information, etc., etc. But what you're really looking at is the different share class. So you'll see on here, the clean share class for Guinness is A2. I don't know why they didn't start with A1, but it's A2. So if we look at the sterling version, okay, you'll see on here as well, it even go down here, even re-mentions all the Guinness stuff on here. So when you've got the fact sheet as well, all the information is repeating that Guinness, Guinness, Guinness. Okay, we're not hiding that. dVam, if you like, is a marketing side of things, okay, which has got all the protection side of Pacific, who are the legal entity that run the fund. Okay, we can change them. We've just done it recently where we removed GAM. Okay, we had a relationship with GAM, we removed them and they were replaced with Mercer. Okay, so Pacific have the ability to remove the fund manager as well.
Was that a performance issue? Then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So ultimately, we're like a manager of managers,
Correct.
right? And if somebody is underperforming, we're going to take them out,
Gone.
and then we're going to bring
Yep. So
somebody
then we go to someone else. Go. We've got these assets.
Yeah.
Can you run these for us? Done. Okay. So Guinness has been the best one. I mean, you can see the performance there over time, even through the pandemic. It was one of the only funds that made money. Okay. And then it rocketed back up again straight after. Okay. And after last year with challenges of inflation, etc., it's now back on again, and it continued to pay the dividend throughout the whole thing. So clients still received about 3% dividend as well.
Does it show on the right-hand side what the dividend is, or does it show the last performance?
The dividend will vary. No, I don't think it's got the dividend on there. So the dividend's biannual, so it's just been paid to clients now. Okay, from the actual, we could probably drill down more information and get the actual number on that, because I said that's just been paid recently. So that's very good for all the funds. So that's for the dVam fund. You've got the website for all that, which gives you all the information. So you've got all the regular share classes on there, and there's a full sheet which exists, which gives you all the share classes, okay, the regulars and everything.
All the dVam, they all pay dividends?
Not all.
Just the equity?
No, some of them, it's a small one, okay, but and depend on the institution. Some of the institutions won't have it because they want a cut, so there's literally nothing in it. For example, like the Generali ones, there's nothing left in them. All of the lump sum ones, yes, because the lump sum one, that's paid directly to us because we own it.
Yeah.
For the regulars, we have to pay the institution and they pay us, so they take a cut as well. So it's the regulars are a bit of a con really because they take a cut of it. But for the lump sum ones, yes, all of them.
They
Okay.
all pay a dividend?
All pay.
But on the funds, isn't it gonna hinge on what their strategy is, what they're investing in?
Of course, yeah, of course.
So, I mean, if I'm in 100% equities and I'm in technology, I wouldn't expect a dividend. But if I was in Johnson & Johnson, GE, like your blue chips.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget they're fund to fund, so they can be changed as well.
Okay.
So the fund manager will make a decision to change the fund as well. So let's go back to the global equity income. Okay, that'll give you some information on there. So it's giving you it's giving you the top holdings there. Okay, so you've got information of what clients want. You've got some tech stuff in there. Obviously, the weightings of this change constantly. Okay, so the weightings might change, the holdings might change. Okay, and there's typically around about 200 holdings.
Okay.
All right, so you can get the full information. So once it'll be on one of the information packs there of every single holding. Okay, that's just showing you your top 10 by weighting, and you can see obviously the weighting obviously of them, but the companies is US on there. But this is a value fund, so it's done exceptionally well, this fund. The next one to that, which we use kind of in line with that, is the equity focus, which is a bit more aggressive. A clean share class, and this one is A1. This one's a bit more aggressive. It's done exceptionally well this year, but it's had a tough time. Again, you can see on there, this kind of complements with it. So we'll typically have 50% into global equity income with this for a bit of spice. In the right markets, this will do 12+% returns.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a bit more spicy. Again, it's got a fund manager, Columbia Threadneedle, the fund manager. Okay, they run the fund. Okay, so again, the same thing, cheaper than buying it direct. And you can very easily get that. You can pull the information up of the actual funds, show clients, this is the normal version, this is the retail version, this is our version. Okay, very clear that it's a difference on it, and the performance as well. All right, so it's very transparent. The other point to it as well, if something's not performing, they can be removed. And we can use GAM as an example. Weren't working out, they were cut. All right, and clients weren't penalised, everything just moved across, nothing for us to do. Didn't have to do any fund switches or anything, so everything just moved across. Right, because we own the assets and everything as well. Right, if you want to get a bit more technical, then you can actually build a portfolio for a client, okay, through the MPS system. So where is that? Okay, so get familiar with this. Okay, this gets sent around regularly. That's the login details there. Okay, so it's mps.pacific.co.uk/sign-in. Okay, this email comes out regularly, particularly when they come in and do it. And then what you can do on here is it gives the performance of the actual portfolio. So this is more designed for lump sums. You can create a portfolio. Okay, so if you're talking to a client about investment strategies, you can then go and create a portfolio for the client, okay, which comes in a detailed report. Choose the currency, choose the model. Again, you've got the clean and stuff on here. So if you wanted to be, let's say, aggressive, we'll go clean up front, moderate growth. Okay, it will spit out the portfolio for you. It will then even produce the DI for you. Let's do FPI. Okay, so you actually don't even need to do anything. You put the numbers in, it will spit out, hopefully, the form for the client to be done and sent off to the institution. Okay, that can then also be rebalanced very easily. So you can then put the numbers in here, okay, and you can do a rebalance. Okay, and it will then recalculate it based on market conditions. All right, you can play around with this, and then what you can do is request a full detailed proposal that will come from this based on what you've recommended the client. Personalised, okay, all the information on the strategies, okay, the asset managers, more detail. Okay, then it will give a breakdown again of the portfolio based on how much the client's got, what the weightings are for each fund. Okay, full detail on the holdings, top 10 holdings of each fund. Okay, performance then of each one as well, of the portfolio. Okay, and then you've got a tool when you can go through to a client, and when you sit with them again, you can then run a rebalance and then see if it's out of sync. Okay, and what it'll do is then look at the weighting again, it's live, and then you can submit a dealing instrument and the team will then rebalance it. All right, so it's a great tool where then you've got all the performance on the strategies. Where are they?
So I mean, if you had a client who you did a risk tolerance for, and let's say they came up as being a moderate client, or like, I don't know what exactly categories you have, but let's say they were moderate growth.
That's categories.
Growth, right?
Yep.
I mean, can you override it so that they could go into a growth strategy? Or
They would need to sign for it. They would have to sign for it.
Okay.
Because
so as long as they approve it.
because you can be underweight and overweight.
Yeah.
So actually you can be under risk and over risk.
Yeah.
So as long as the client's aware of that, and typically up the risk, just up in the equity exposure. Okay, so that's the 5 strategies there: defensive, cautious, balanced, moderate growth, and growth. Okay. In simple terms, the more risk, the higher potential performance. Okay, so you can see the top performance on there. Okay, over the maximum term, well, let's do it over 5 years as an example. So over a 5-year period, you can see the difference actually is a 25% gain over defensive to growth. All right, just kind of market move. Everything follows that kind of moves the same sort of pattern, but your performance is just moves really on that. So you could tweak all this, get used to it, have a play with it. You can see obviously the bad years, 22, inflation, etc. You can see where it goes, but again, it also shows the value of remaining invested for the long term. Right here, typical COVID. Okay, people panicked, wanted to sell out, but actually very quickly, the bottom to going up again wasn't very long at all. All right, we've got loads of examples of that over the years. Trump, when he first came into power, COVID, Brexit, etc. If you look at all of that historical data, it's very, very similar. Okay, when people panic, okay, stay invested. All right, it's definitely invested for the long term. All right, so we could have a recession, who knows? I think we probably had a technical recession, in my opinion, going through inflation, etc. in 22. We'll have to see what happens. But you've got so much information and tools on there, but again, obviously you can't control the markets. All you can do is make sure the client's in the right risk profiling to actually hopefully ride through that. And actually, if it does get challenging, then we have solutions for it. As an example, at the moment, we've got one set of notes which got China in, fairly challenging. Okay, but we've introduced a note to compensate for that as a recovery note to hopefully then recover over a period of time funds. We're not washed our hands with it and gone, okay, it happens. We're going, okay, we've got a solution for you. Okay, but typically funds invested for the long term, you ride through periods of volatility. Right, and again with all of this, going back to where it was, okay, fees wise, obviously we saw a drop off of fees there. Keeping the clients remaining invested, keeping contact with the clients, super important. We're talking to the clients through the volatile periods. the fees came back again within sort of 6 months, okay, even though they dropped. Right, and also the client's valuation is done. We've seen that already here. Okay, so I've been going through clients' portfolios this year, and they're already a massive gain. You can see that from here. So we're going from, what's that? Start of November, so 26 to 35 is a 10% gain. Just in a matter of a month, really. Just by remaining invested. All right, so it's not, things do go up. We have had a challenging 4 years. Okay, but the important part as well is just keeping in contact with the client, keeping up to date with the client, and actually showing them information. When things go down, don't hide away from it. Show them why it's gone down. Talked about why remaining for the long term. Okay, because at the end of the day, you want portfolios going up. You've got a long-term view. And if you've got a view 5 years plus, you can build yourself a very, very nice income by doing the right things, getting the clients into the right things. All right, and there's nothing wrong with being paid as long as you are servicing the client. Right, to take a fee and sit back and not talk to the client, that's ripping them off. Okay, it's robbery really. But actually, by charging a fee for it, and a DFM is a service fee for you producing this information, going through it with the client, make sure they're in the right funds, make sure we've got best of class funds. There's more funds coming to the dVam range, okay, which just gives you better tools to actually use with the client to promote those funds and why those funds. So we still get it, why dVam? Well, simple terms, that, but you want that version, I want that version. Okay, that one's more expensive, that one's cheaper. Same thing. Okay, so when you're talking to clients, it's almost a why wouldn't you situation. And then obviously you get the ability to grow that assets under management, let alone on dVam, but your fees side of things as well. Right, but it's quite easy. If you focus on it, it's quite easy to get to a decent amount. I mean, I think collectively I must be about 130 now on fees. Okay, so that keeps me in quite a nice lifestyle. Okay, means I can do other things as well, but you've got that ongoing. You know every year what's coming in. You're starting from zero, but you know what's coming in. So this quarter already, fees started being paid. Great, I'm ticking off, right, that's in. And I'm already seeing a trend of the fees going up this year versus last year. Okay, it can make a big difference. Even a couple of percent movement in the market, the fees improve massively. All right, so again, when you're looking at it, you'll find when you structure your portfolio, obviously notes are a big part of our business as well. But if you're too heavy into notes and the markets go down, the secondary markets on the notes, it affects your overall fees. All right, so there's a balance that I personally don't use that many notes nowadays, all right, because I want just portfolios going up and up and up. Okay, I'll use maybe some of the fixed income ones or fixed coupon ones, but I won't use maybe the auto calls so much nowadays because they can be a bit more affected by market conditions. And we've got some at the moment at 50% down. If that's a big chunk of the portfolio, that's hit 50% of the fees. So it's a balance between the two on there. So plenty of tools available to you. Use them, understand them, ask questions if you don't know them, and get familiar with this tool because this is actually very good. This can help you close business, right? Just by producing a nice report to the client going, I've got X to invest. What's your risk profile? Let me go and profile that for you. You then can present the client that report, very detailed report, okay, specifically for them, okay, so it will be absolutely for them, presented by you, in their name, okay, that you can produce that's absolutely bespoke to them based on how much they want to invest. Okay, and then when you go to see them again, you can use this tool, okay, to go through it and then actually check that against the performance of it, whether it's in risk profile, in risk tolerance or not. Okay, and then you can always do a rebalance if necessary. But again, if it's DFM, you don't do that. The DFM team produce it all for you. All right, so it's actually very, very time saving. I do the same regularly with mine. If I'm looking at portfolios, I'll do a review with the client. If I think it needs a rebalance, I will simply email to the DFM team, please rebalance. They come back, that, you okay with that? Yep, I'm done, do it. I'm not producing any paperwork at all, it's done. All right, clients are happy with that. It takes a little bit of trust with the clients because you're doing everything for them. They're not actually having to sign anything at all because they sign authority when they sign a DFM form. But you'll find you're not seeing clients sat in cash for too long. You're not seeing clients overweight. What we've done, particularly towards the end of last year, we rebalanced clients into a little bit more risk. So we took them from balanced to moderate growth, a lot of clients, to pick up the performance. All right, so we were talking to clients going, it's been a bit flat the last couple of years because of the markets. What I expect to do is get you into this, because I think this year, mid-year onwards, we expect interest rates to come down, we expect inflation to keep coming down, okay, that will be good for the market and the portfolio. And a number of those clients have seen a big gain already this year, just in a matter of a month. Right, any questions? Fine, use the tools, any questions, ask. Most of the managers should be pretty clear on all this stuff, should understand it all, but there are lots of tools at your disposal. Again, it's down to you if you want to use them.